Good morning from the National Weather Service here in Raleigh, North Carolina. My name is James Morrow. I'm a meteorologist here, and I'm joined today by Levi, a North Carolina State intern. And we've been monitoring the severe weather potential today and what looks to be another warm and muggy week ahead for Central North Carolina. And we'll go through that with today's weekly impact weather briefing. This is being filmed and recorded on June 11th. And it will be valid through next Sunday, June 17th. But if you're tuning in a little bit later, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, later that week, for updated weather information, be sure to tune to weather.gov/Raleigh for the most up-to-date weather forecast for your location. So taking a broad look, we're monitoring a cold front that is currently situated along the Virginia-North Carolina border and continuing to sag south. We're expecting that front to continue sagging south today, igniting a few strong to severe storms, which will be possible, and we'll get into that a little bit more later in the presentation. We're expecting that front to dip pretty far south into the South Carolina, Georgia area before returning north midweek with another front that looks like it may pass just to the north of us late in the week, with some hints of some drying out as high pressure settles in over the Atlantic by next weekend. Those hints are still pretty far out. There's a lot of uncertainty still in play, but we may have the early indications of a warm but dry weekend coming ahead next weekend. As I mentioned, we are outlooked by the Storm Prediction Center as a marginal risk of severe weather today. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but you also see that we have daily thunderstorm chances continuing into midweek and probably all the way into next weekend. We're just in one of those muggy summertime type patterns. We're going to see that continue over Central North Carolina, at least for the next 5 to 7 days. Taking a look at the recent rainfall amounts, we had a pretty good break through much of the week here with just some intermittent showers, mainly things staying well south of the area, even south and east of Sampson County. We did have a pretty good batch of storms move through late last night, impacting the Triangle area after midnight, and that dumped anywhere from 1 to 2 inches between Durham County, Northern Wake County, and southwest Franklin County. So those areas are wet, and we'll be continuing to monitor those sites for additional rainfall today. And what we're likely to see is a brief uptick in the rivers this week. It doesn't look like there's a high chance of river flooding, but we're going to see these periodic brief upticks, especially in localized areas that see some heavy rain from showers and storms that move through on a daily basis. Looking at the Weather Prediction Center's QPF forecast, we are anticipating QPF across much of North Carolina today as that front pushes south. We may, or at least the triad may, see a break tomorrow with just some light non-accumulating showers pushed in over the area, or at least not high amounts of accumulation, with most of the precip tomorrow focused along the coastline. And as we go into the middle of the week, it'll be hit or miss depending on if you see some of those daily shower and thunderstorm chances, with totals anywhere from 1 to 3 inches in the next 7 days. The tropics remain quiet, at least on this half of at least in the Atlantic basin. The Pacific is starting to heat up with 2 active systems right now, but they currently don't have a threat to land. But tropical Atlantic remains quiet, at least over the next 5 days. And looking ahead, we're expecting these warm and moist conditions continuing in the long term, 8 to 14 days. And that trend seems to be continuing into even the early parts of astronomical summer, which will take place middle to late month. All right, so taking a look at the current satellite image, we are seeing that boundary starting to drape toward the south, dipping into portions of North Carolina now. We're expecting that trend to continue, and we're seeing the initial stages of cumulus formation right along that outflow boundary that was put down by the storms late last night. We're expecting that area near Fayetteville and Fort Bragg to be the initial point, seeing some storms form anywhere between 1 and 2 o'clock, with storms starting to impact portions of the triad between the 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock time frame, and Triangle anywhere from 3 to 7 o'clock. We think the majority of the strong storms will be toward the southern end of North Carolina, typically from that US 64 corridor and south, but we'll be monitoring each storm as it forms, and they should be moving pretty quickly, but if we get repeating storms, we could even have a flash flood threat. And here's a closer look at what to expect today. We have a marginal risk for severe weather as that cold front dips to the south, Best chance across the entire area will be that 2 to 9 o'clock time frame, with a few locations, including parts of Sampson County in the coastal plain, the southeastern coastal plain, maybe having a lingering storm into the overnight hours. All of central North Carolina will fall under this threat, and the strongest storms will exhibit 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts, quarter-size hail, and heavy rainfall, which could lead to isolated flash flooding. Here's a model rendition of what could occur today. You'll see those initial storms starting to fire right around that 1 to 2 o'clock time frame across the central to southern portions of the North Carolina, with additional storms spilling over off the Blue Ridge and along the frontal boundary, which is continuing to sag south through the area. So just as a quick summary, a few strong storms will be possible today. We may see a brief break from the heat on Tuesday as the area is kind of wedged in with some cloudy, cool, and showery type conditions. We'll quickly warm up through the middle part of the week, with Wednesday's temperatures returning to near 90 degrees, and that continuing Thursday, Friday, and even into the weekend, where there's some indications where Saturday afternoon and Sunday may actually start to dry us out a little bit, but that's still pretty far out. So I'm going to stop the recording here, and I'm happy to answer